So welcome. Good morning and good afternoon. One of my favorite books is The Gateless Barrier, translated and commentary by Robert Aitken, the Mumon Khan. And this book is what you call it's a living book. It's not really a book to just read by oneself. It's a collection of 48 koans, and really it only comes to life if you study it with someone. And that really applies to all the koan collections. Once you've studied them with someone, then you can read this book by yourself. But until you've studied the koans with someone, it's probably not an ideal book to read by oneself. But I have had the thought that if I was on a solitary retreat for maybe 3 months or 6 months and could only have one book, this would be the one I would take with me. But I also had the thought that if I was on a solitary retreat for maybe a year or 3 years, then I would take the full collection of the Shobogenzo Dogen's writings, because it would take at least 3 years just to get through it once. For me, it would take me a long time to get through all of Dogen's roughly 200 essays or fascicles. But I've had this book since, I think, 1995, and it's all soft on the edges. And I love this book because, for many reasons, but I love it. I love its soft edges. So there's a koan from here I'd like to read. Don't know if I marked the page. Let me look it up. Which is the true Chien, is the koan. Page 213. So the koan itself is very short, but I'd like to read out the background to this koan. So it's case 35, Utsu, which is the true Chien? Utsu asked a monk, the woman Chien and her spirit separated. Which is the true Chien? And the story about the woman Chien comes from a Chinese folklore, a fable, an old Chinese story. And I'll read it out, and then I'll read it out again because it's very unusual. And if you haven't heard it before, it's a little hard to track on the first hearing. So the story of the girl Chien. There lived in Hanyang a father named Chien, whose child daughter Chien, it says here, was of peerless beauty, but I think I'll just say was wise and kind. Just because the peerless beauty gets a little bit tiring after a while. So we don't need to be of peerless beauty to be practitioners. So whose daughter Chien was wise and kind. He also had a nephew named Wang Chao, a very handsome boy. And I don't mind that we leave it as a handsome boy because that's not used so often to define males, so that's okay. He was a handsome boy and he was probably wise and kind as well. The children played together and were fond of each other. Once Chien, the father, jestingly said to his nephew, "Someday I will marry you to my little daughter." Both children remembered these words and they believed themselves thus betrothed. When Chien grew up, a man of rank asked for her in marriage, and her father decided to comply with the demand. Chien was greatly troubled by this decision. As for Chao, he was so much angered and grieved that he resolved to leave home and go to another province. The next day, he got a boat ready for his journey, and after sunset, without bidding farewell to anyone, he proceeded up the river. But in the middle of the night, he was startled by a voice calling to him, "Wait, it is I." And he saw a girl running along the bank towards the boat. It was Chien. Chow was unspeakably delighted. She sprang into the boat, and the lovers found their way safely to the province of Chu. In the province of Chu, they lived happily for 6 years, and they had 2 children. But Chien could not forget her parents and often longed to see them again. At last she said to her husband, "Because in former times I could not bear to break the promise made to you, I ran away with you and forsook my parents, although knowing that I owed them all possible duty and affection. Would it not now be well to try and obtain their forgiveness?" "Do not grieve yourself about that," said Chow. We shall go see them." He ordered a boat to be prepared, and a few days later, he returned with his wife to Hanyang. According to custom, in such cases, the husband first went to the house of Chien, the father, leaving Chien alone in the boat. Chien welcomed his nephew with every sign of joy and said, "How much I have been longing to see you. I was often afraid that something had happened to you." Chow answered respectfully, "I am distressed by the undeserved kindness of your words. It is to beg your forgiveness that I have come." But Chien did not seem to understand. He asked, "To what matter do you refer?" "I feared," said Chow, "that you were angry with me for having run away with Chien. I took her with me to the province of Chu." "What Chien was that?" asked Chien's father. "Your daughter, Chien," answered Chow, beginning to suspect his father-in-law of some malevolent design. "What are you talking about?" cried Chien, with every appearance of astonishment. "My daughter Chien has been sick in bed all these years, ever since the time you went away." "Your daughter Chien," returned Chow, becoming angry, "has not been sick. She has been my wife for 6 years, and we have 2 children, and we have both returned to this place only to seek your pardon. Therefore, please do not mock us." For a moment, the 2 looked at each other in silence. Then Chien arose and, motioning to his nephew to follow, led the way to an inner room where a sick girl was lying. And Chow, to his utter amazement, saw the face of Chien, beautiful but strangely pale and thin. "She cannot speak," explained the old man, "but she can understand." And Chien said to her laughingly, "Chow tells me that you ran away with him and that you gave him 2 children." The sick girl looked at Chow and smiled but remained silent. "Now come with me to the river," said the bewildered visitor to his father-in-law, "for I can assure you, in spite of what I have seen in this house, that your daughter Chien is at this moment in my boat." They went to the river, and there indeed was the young wife waiting. And seeing her father, she bowed down before him and besought his pardon. Chien said to her, "If you really be my daughter, I have nothing but love for you. Yet though you seem to be my daughter, there is something which I cannot understand. Come with us to the house." So the 3 proceeded toward the house. As they neared it, they saw the sick girl who had not before left her bed for years, and she was coming to meet them, smiling as if much delighted. And the 2 Chiens approached each other. But then, nobody could tell how, they suddenly melted into each other and became one body, one person, one Chien, even more beautiful than before, and showing no sign of sickness or of sorrow. The father said to Chow, "Ever since the day of your going, my daughter was silent, and most of the time like a person who had taken too much wine. Now I know that her spirit was absent." Chien herself said, "Really, I never knew that I was at home. I saw Chow going away in silent anger, and the same night I dreamt that I ran after his boat. But now I cannot tell which was really I, the one that went away in the boat or the one that stayed home." It's an amazing story, an amazing and unusual story. It's kind of long, so maybe I won't read it again. But maybe just to summarize, it's a story of two children who are best friends, imagining that they will get married and then realizing that they won't. And he leaves and she follows. And they get married and have children, and then feel some kind of sadness and regret that they've left the parents. And so return to her parents and discover that Chien has actually been in bed all of that time, silent, sickly. And then the Chien that's been silent and sickly comes out and meets the Chien that's been married and had children and lived a life for 6 years. And the two of them merge. Chien herself can't even work out which one she was. So with this story, I kind of like not to try and categorize what the two different Chiens represent. It wouldn't be hard to do that. But I kind of like not to do that and just sit with this question of which is the true Chien, and sit with the image of a person feeling split. And what might that be for us? Do we sometimes feel split? Having one foot in each camp, maybe, or not sure who we are, not sure what we should do. Should I act or should I not act? Do something or not do something? Am I defined by all the things that I do in my life? Is that who I am? Is that who we are? Or are we something that's not defined by all of those things? Is there someone other than the person who does things, other than the mother, the husband, the child, the son, the daughter, the worker, the practitioner, the activist, the angry one, the lonely one, the busy one, the bored one? Is there something else that's also us besides all of those things? From the Buddha nature teachings, we would say, yes, there is an us that is interpenetrating with all other beings, and it is beautiful. There is an us that is beautiful, no matter what we do or don't do. And we also have the emptiness teachings that there is no self. We could say there's a self that we can't find. There's an unfindable self, or no self. no separate individual self. But if we think about this story, the Chien that was with her husband and the children was happy, but also felt something was missing. And the Chien that was lying in bed was sad. And it doesn't say so in the story, but you have a sense there was something missing for her. Well, she had this longing for Chow, for her childhood love. So both of them felt something was missing. And I think the teaching that we can gain from that, from the experience of Chien, feeling something was missing, is that for us to live a really good life, we need to bring these two aspects of our teachings or two aspects of reality to be together. There's the truth of us with a name and a life and labels and language. There's the us that is all of those things. And then there's the us that we can't find, that is unknown, that no words can describe, but also is so. There's an us that we can't define, we have no words for, but is true. And in the story, you could say the Chien who was in bed, she wasn't not there. She'd been there all that time, and her father had known she was there all that time. She wasn't not there. It wasn't an aberration. And so I find in my life, if I'm tipping a little too far towards the side of Neti, who has a name and who does things, if I'm tipping a little too far that way and wondering whether I'm doing a good enough job, whether I could be doing a better job in those various roles, if I'm feeling I'm tipping too much that way, I just tip the other way and say, there's no one really here. There's no real self that I can find. There is no real Neti. But whatever this unknowable, undefinable, unborn, undying selfless self is, I always add, but she is good, and she is beautiful, and she is fine. I always add that bit. And I think that's just a way of speaking about true nature or Buddha nature or big mind. True self. These different phrases get used by different teachers. And it's very nice to then tip a little that way. It's kind of very spacious. It's like, I can relax. There's nothing I need to especially do to validate my existence. This is very big and open okayness, this big and open, undefined okayness. But we don't want to tip too far that way. If we tip too far that way, we might get complacent in our vows, in our precepts, and in our roles. We do have obligations and commitments and beneficial ways of functioning in the world, so we don't want to neglect them. It's just, and I like in the story it says, nobody knows how, but the two Chiens merge. And I imagine that if I was there, I'd really be looking closely at these two Chiens. I'd be looking really closely as they merge. And right there, I think that's a beautiful way to think about the way to practice is to give our full attention to the present moment. Give our full attention to just breathing in and just breathing out. Give our attention to the sound of the birds or traffic. This morning I could hear very far, it felt like very far away, a kind of a thump, 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 thump. The sort of sound when a car is playing music with a really heavy bass, but it's a really long way away and you can only hear the bass. I couldn't tell if that's what it was. For a little while, I wondered, like, is it just my own heartbeat that I'm hearing? Couldn't work out what it was. It was interesting just to, because it wasn't rhythmic enough to be bass of some music. It didn't seem to quite fit. It was a bit too irregular. And I never solved it. But it was interesting just to give my attention to this sound and wonder what it was. So I'd like to read another koan. In our koan class, we're studying this case. It's case 2 in the Book of Serenity, but it's case 1 in the Blue Cliff Record. And both of these, Blue Cliff Record and the Book of Serenity, are other koan collections, which in a similar way, these books become beneficial when they're studied with other people. So we've studied this whole collection of 100 koans from the Blue Cliff Record in our koan class. It took us 6 years to get through this book, for the respect that it deserved. We had a good time. So the highest meaning of the holy truths, case 1, the Blue Cliff Record. Emperor Wu of Liang asked the great master Bodhidharma, "What is the highest meaning of the holy truths?" Bodhidharma said, "Empty, without holiness." The emperor said, "Who is facing me?" Bodhidharma replied, "I don't know." The emperor did not understand. After this, Bodhidharma crossed the Yangtze River and came to the kingdom of Hui. Later, the emperor brought up this to Master Chien and asked him about it. Master Chien asked, "Does your majesty know who this man is?" The emperor said, "I don't know." Master Chien said, "He is the Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara transmitting the Buddha mind seal." The emperor felt regretful, so he wanted to send an emissary to go visit Bodhidharma to invite Bodhidharma to return. Master Chien told him, "Your Majesty, don't ask that you will send someone to fetch him back. Even if everyone in the whole country were to go after him, he still wouldn't return." So in this case, the reason I picked this koan to read alongside, which is the true Chien, is that the emperor asked Bodhidharma, "Who is facing me?" And Bodhidharma replied, "I don't know." I like that this "I don't know" is another way of saying that we don't fall too firmly in any one particular reality. We don't fall too firmly in the reality of form. I am a parent. I am a worker. I am this person. We don't fall too heavily there. We don't fall too heavily on, I am empty of any characteristics. Because we don't fall on one side or the other, we don't try and land anywhere, which is another way of talking about groundlessness. We're not trying to find a solid, singular truth. We just move between different ways of understanding reality, because reality can't be understood. All we're ever doing is approximations to it. So in Zen, we have these multiple truths that we hold all together. And when we hold them all together like that, we seem to function more skillfully and have less anxiety. And we can really relax and rest into a kind of a broad, I don't know. It's not just I don't know, it's it can't be known. It can't be known. Who are you? It can't be known. Who am I? It can't be known. I don't know, you don't know, nobody could know. It can't be known. It's that kind of I don't know. It's a very deep type of I don't know. It's not, I don't happen to know, but maybe I'll know later. It's not that kind of I don't know. It's like it can't be known. So there's kind of a relaxation that comes with that, because we don't have to expend energy trying to figure everything out as if there's some singular answer that once we get, we can relax. It's this very broad, it can't be known. But nevertheless, I have to function. And so I provisionally know things. And everything I know is provisional. The other thing I like about this case is this last part where Master Chi's, Emperor Wu is kind of regretful that his conversation with Bodhidharma didn't continue on for longer, that it was so brief. And he's regretful of that. And so he asked this other master, could he send somebody to invite Bodhidharma to come back so he can talk to him again? And Master Chi says, Your Majesty, don't say that you will send someone to fetch him back. Even if everyone in the whole country were to go after him, he still wouldn't return. And I think this is a lovely way of reminding us to value the present moment that we're in, like right now, in this very second, this very moment that we're in now, to really appreciate that this is a moment that we're in right now. It's not going to come back. Can't go get it again later. It's just what it is right now. And sometimes the right now moments aren't very pleasant. They can be very difficult. A lot of us know those difficult moments, very challenging. Things aren't going the way we would like them to go. Not to get what one wants is suffering, as our sutra says in Setting in Motion the Wheel of Dharma. Not to get what one wants is suffering. So sometimes our moment that we're in right now is not very pleasant, but still, let's not have the regret of Emperor Wu. Let's not have the regret that we'll miss Bodhidharma in the present moment. And if we do have regret, then we can just enjoy the regret that we're in, of course. Just enjoy the regret. Damn it, I wasn't paying attention. It's okay. Enjoy the damn it. Well, I think I'll stop there. I'll turn off the recording.